Welcome to eAssist Growing Your Dental Business podcast. Tune in as the experts in dental business share tips and tools to grow your practice. To learn more, visit dentalbilling.com. Please welcome our next guest.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Growing Your Dental Business podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Hurley, and today we have a truly special guest joining us. Her name is Jessica Martin. She is the owner of Martin Management Consulting and also the co-owner of Martin Dental. Her husband is a dentist, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about that in a minute, which is a thriving dental spa located in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. With her background as a licensed school psychologist, she does have a master's degree in psychology. So we kind of talked about that for a hot second. And she does have a background working in school psychology, which I'm sure is very interesting from day to day. Jessica is uniquely positioned. She can help medical professionals understand and address the anxieties that many patients face when visiting the dentist. So Jessica, I'm excited to have you. Your big thing is developing practical strategies to help practices break down those barriers to care and ensure that every patient has a positive experience. Is that correct?
That is. Thanks for having me, Jacqueline.
You have a family. Don't you have a couple of daughters?
I have
A daughter and a son. I knew you had a couple of kids, and I'm sure you're the cutest mom in the whole world. That just makes my heart happy because I have a really special place in my heart for children. But I'm really excited for you to be here today to share some of your insights on improving patient experience, enhancing internal systems, and just driving growth in dental practices. So let's dive in.
you.
So I wondered, let's just talk a little bit about I'm just curious about how you got into the dental industry. I know that you kind of have that background in school psychology, but you are married to a dentist. So I'm assuming that that had something to do with you jumping over to the dental world.
Yes, for sure. My husband and I actually used to joke that we would never work together. And I never thought I would have any interest in healthcare. I'm one of those people that can't handle blood or bodily fluids. I get queasy. So had no interest in healthcare as a young person. Working as a school psychologist, I loved that work. I did scale back some of my work when my daughter was born. And so at the time that my husband needed me at the dental practice, I was working from home, able to cater to her schedule. And I was a school psychologist and director of special education for a virtual charter school. This was long before charter or virtual schools were even a thing, way before COVID and all of that. And so we're doing some really innovative, cool work in my field. And then he came home on a Thursday and said, "So I'm going to need you to come in on Monday and run the practice because I have two people quitting at the same time and they're the only ones that know how to run the office." So it was kind of trial by fire, figured it out. I was, really working in the practice very heavily for about 6 months. And then things stabilized and we sat down and I said, "Okay, got somebody in the seat. She's great. Everything is good." But I kind of am loving working in the practice and I see there's a lot of area of need. We need to grow. We're not thriving. We're kind of struggling with our schedule. And there were just a lot of things I could see that I had no idea were happening that he hadn't really shared with me when I wasn't involved. And so that's really when I started working on the practice. And then from that, the consulting was born years later. So that's how it all happened.
Oh, what a beautiful story. I love that, which it's not uncommon for a dentist to lose a couple of team members at the same time, right? But I don't know how many wives are willing to step in and just take over the practice. So that's a huge tribute to you. I think that's amazing. Great job. Way to do that. And now you're running this very successful, not just a dental practice, but your consulting business. So I think that's amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about dentists. So I know dental practices struggle with balancing patient experience and operational efficiency. So this is probably something that's right up your alley. What actionable steps can a practice take to enhance patient experiences while streamlining its internal systems?
Yeah, so it's interesting because a lot of people think, and I was one of those people that initially thought that they were very separate things, right? That systems and the things that run the business and help it to be profitable are really in its own silo. And then the patient experiences something different. And really it's the journey that the patient goes through the systems that the team puts them through to book the appointment, to prepare for the appointment, to actually receive the care, the aftercare, the follow-up, all of that is a system. And if we don't have that optimized really well, the patient feels that. We really don't want them to feel like they're running through our systems. They should just feel like this lovely walk in the woods, if you will, where it's just pleasant. They leave the office and they're like, that was a really wonderful team. And I enjoyed myself a little bit. If we're doing it right, that's how it feels. If the systems aren't optimized, it can feel very different. And a lot of people come to a dental visit feeling nervous already just because of all the things. And we could talk about all day about dental anxiety, but they come
Yeah.
nervous. And then if our systems aren't serving us well and aren't serving our patients well, that really adds to that feeling of this isn't going to go well. I don't know about this. This team maybe isn't right for me. And so it really affects everything. A lot of what I teach my clients is preparedness and really to make sure that their systems are well functioning, that everybody is following the system. That can be tricky sometimes, especially with bigger teams. An individual might do something this way and another one might do something that way, and it's not cohesive. And so that can create some friction. But yeah, really being prepared. And one thing I like to implement as well is in addition to the medical history for patients. So it's kind of an intake system, if you will, but it's really asking patients about how they feel about receiving dental care. We ask them 100 million questions about their medical history and all of their health conditions and, medications that they're on, but we're not really asking how do they feel about coming in. And so gathering some of that information and actually giving patients the verbiage to share what it might be about the dental visit that is problematic for them can really help the team to understand the patient better, to maybe adjust some of the things that they can do to make it more comfortable and create really a better experience because they've asked those right questions. So that's just a little thing that, you can add into the already existing systems to just make it a little bit better and enhance that patient experience.
Well, it sounds like it's kind of just personalization too, and trying to dig a little deeper than just those physical things that are always on your intake form that patients are always filling out. But I love that you're just taking it a little bit deeper, trying to, I don't know, I'm sure that's a psychology in you, trying to take it a little bit deeper. How do they feel about everything? And I think that's so great. I don't know if I've ever actually had a dentist ask me how I feel about coming to the dentist?
Well, and it's interesting because I've had clients that say, oh my gosh, is this going to open a can of worms? Because we don't have all day to talk with people about how they're feeling. And we're not, I can remember my husband telling me, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor. Like, what if I get people in that are feeling really scared? What do I do with that? Right. And so that's the other piece of it is really training the team on understanding dental anxiety and giving them strategies that they can put into place to help the patient deal with it, dental anxiety. That can go a huge long way. I call them comfort amenities or spa amenities. I teach teams how to put those in place because a lot of what patients are anxious about is related to the sensory experience. So if you can think about, our sensory system, it helps us make judgments about things being good or bad. If you're really cold, you're like, I don't want to be here any longer. My body's cold. If things are poking you, if there's really loud screeching noises, you're trying to get out of that, right? Like who wants to pay for that experience? But that's what we're kind of doing to people in the dental chair, just inherently in what we need to do their dental treatment. So if we can add positive sensory experiences in or reduce some of that negative sensory, their body can actually rest and go into relaxation mode a little bit so that they can not feel so wound up about being there and receiving care. And back to the asking them how they feel about it, I think it actually reduces some of those conversations because they feel like they ask those questions. I feel understood enough, right? It's when the team doesn't seem to care that patient will go on and on because they want to feel understood. They need the provider to know what they've been through or what they're going through. And so if we can ask those questions, they can feel like, oh, all right, this team's got me. I didn't have to give them all the gory details. They get it and they're probably going to do something about it and make it better. That creates such a different experience just there without even going further with it.
Yeah, well, I love all the sensory items you ask about, or, I think it's nice to know if you're cold or if I went to a dentist. I used to go to a dentist. She stopped taking my insurance, so I switched. But I honestly loved her office. Like I walked in, they had fresh cookies baking every day in the office, and it just smelled so yummy to be there. And I remember thinking, I don't really love the smell of a dentist, and it took all of that away for me. And they always gave me a really yummy, warm blanket, and they were really into just sensory things like smell, just anything that's going to make you more comfortable. So I think I can relate to the whole spa feel thing that you offer.
Yeah, and I would actually love to at some point dig a little bit deeper into what you said about you loved it there, but then, their relationship with your insurance changed and then how that altered your decision. But here you still have these fond memories of this practice. That's
Yes.
the barrier
I
I help practices overcome as well, because a lot of my clients, as they differentiate, as they create a better experience and really wow patients and create such loyalty, they realize like, wow, we have so many patients. We're scheduled out so far in advance. We don't have room to see all of these people. We have to limit how many new patients we're receiving. Like all of these really good things happen when we take good care of people. And so I do help teams get out of network relationships with insurance as well. And from that patient perspective, helping the patient to understand what that means for them to stay with the practice. It's just really getting difficult for providers to do a good job and to take the time that they need to take with reimbursements being the way they are. So,
Yeah, I totally get that. And they were willing to submit my insurance. They're willing to submit the insurance claim, but it was a little more work on my side. Plus, it wasn't gonna, I mean, that's one of the main reasons I work is to have dental and health benefits and to just take care of my family that way. My husband's been self-employed for so long that it's like, well, let's just see what we can do for me to help on that medical side. There's a lot of practitioners out there that will take my insurance, and that's the main reason I left, but I do still have really fond memories, and I'm actually still really good friends with the dentist. I see her occasionally when I attend Crown Council events, and she's a wonderful lady, and I loved her team. There was so many things I loved about it, so I do have fond memories, and I do think about her often. However, I keep thinking, okay, I am working, so I have these dental benefits, right? So it is a tricky thing. So I know that you do teach about, that reliance from insurance reimbursements. You kind of talk about that. How can practices reduce this dependence? And what role then do you see for third-party dental insurance billing services in this process?
yeah. So I think the first thing is creating the experience in the environment that you remember so fondly that you didn't want to leave, right? You like really loved going there. And where you go now is probably fine, but you're still talking about this other practice, right? So I think like that's the first thing is creating value so that your patients are compelled to stay despite some of these changes. I do think when it comes to third party billing services, getting that out of the practice and allowing your front office team to really build rapport with patients, to take the time to talk to people, to get to know them, greet people by name, to create some of that experience for people and to really be an advocate for the patient first and foremost versus tied to the insurance or dealing with all the claim submission stuff. It just allows for a better experience for patients. It allows for that human interaction and allows that team to be more memorable when they're not bogged down by dealing with all of the insurance billing. Every office that I've helped get out of network with dental insurance, I've always encouraged them to continue to be insurance friendly, meaning do the work, right? Like hire someone to do the work. Don't give it to your patient. If you hand a patient a claim form and say, here's what we did today, good luck. I mean, that's really hard for patients. It's hard for dental practices to know the ins and outs of how to get reimbursed properly. So, third party billing can be a great way to just allow for more space to be able to do those things in office that only a person can do in office, right? Dealing with that person right in front of them, giving them an exceptional, I even like to say, like, hospitality. Like, we don't think of it like that, but we really are. We're kind of proving ourselves to patients every time they visit. If we're kind, if we're friendly, if we're not rushed, if we're, listening to them and helping them in any way that we can. I always encourage our teams to be more tied to that patient than the patient feels tied to their insurance. And some of the strategies of helping the team have less dependence is really starting to educate patients on what is their insurance getting them and how is it limiting them? Because there are people that pay a lot in insurance premium to only have about the same amount in coverage, but then it has all these limitations that they don't understand. Most people don't understand their insurance well enough to make a great decision about what's going to work for them the best. And so, again, having the insurance dealing with outsourced with, eAssist or some other company is so great because now it allows that front desk team to really educate the patient on how can we help maximize your benefits here and what is your insurance getting you and making sure it's the right fit for them because some patients they just don't know and they're overpaying for what they're getting or what they're not getting.
I think that's true in a lot of ways. I know I currently do not have dental insurance. So
Oh,
I thought about going back to her, but I have been looking for a provider that offers an in-house dental plan because I feel like there's a lot of good in-house dental plans out there that are even better than insurance. So
exactly. And that's one of the strategies too. And that's a system of putting that in place, ahead of dropping a dental insurance network. Because again, like you said, there are plans that really can be more service to the patient than what their dental policy was. So there's a lot of front end work that can be done to really help people analyze what they've got going on, make sure it's a good fit for them. If it's not serving them, move them over to, an in-house plan and, now your numbers look a lot different when you're looking at how many patients are tied to the particular network that you're looking to not be tied to anymore. So,
yeah. No, I think that's great advice for these dentists who are trying to just figure out how to be more profitable, how to hang on to their patients. All
mhm.
of that just comes into play. And there's so many different variables when you're looking at everything. So yeah, it really takes to know someone like you that can help kind of handhold them and walk them through the process. So I think that's great, Jessica. So, one thing you did in your dental practice is you kind of went in and renovated the whole practice. This is something that happened once you became very involved, right? You wanted that dental patient to be top of mind in everything that you did, right? So, your ultimate goal is for patient satisfaction and then obviously the overall success of the practice. So, how can designing and renovating a dental practice create a practice and keep all the functional considerations like all the processes that's going on? Let's talk about that for a minute and the challenges that these dentists might need to think about if they're jumping into that process.
Yeah, I'm not a decorator, I'm not an interior designer, but I definitely have a passion for beautiful things and creating beautiful spaces. Prefer to choose places that are beautiful and that look well organized and that just have a good feeling like space has energy. And so I'm drawn to those places and so are most ideal patients, the patients with a little bit of disposable income, people that are more aesthetically minded, that are looking at like cosmetic dentistry or Botox, things like that. They want a more elevated space. They don't wanna walk in and go, "Oh, there's some magazines from 1992, and the equipment is dusty and looks cluttered and old and scary," right? So, y people enjoy when things are beautiful. So, yes, I did it was funny because before I was involved in the practice, my husband would talk about doing things at the office, and I'd be like, "Oh, let's save our money for, our house and making our house prettier. I want new furniture." And then once I got involved in the dental practice, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta," then it became my baby, and then I was like, "Oh, we gotta make this way better." So we had this old little office that we worked out of for years and years, and it was great. It just was too tiny. And I like to say I put lipstick on that because there wasn't much you could do just how it was. It was like there's different colored trim. You'd have to get the whole thing to really do it justice, but we did it. We made it work with some colors and just a lot of different things. And then we were able to build a brand new beautiful office back about 4 years ago. And so then that was really fun because then I could put all of that into action. But I do think there's some little things that anybody can do, whether their space is new or, what renovating or building from the ground up. But a few things like lighting is really important. It sounds silly, but those of us that we know on Zoom, right? Like if we didn't have good lighting right now, it would not look good. And so same in the dental practice. I love using lamps in the I call it the lobby. I don't like the waiting room because like you don't want to feel like you're waiting, but in the lobby using some extra like more soft lighting is really lovely because it just kind of gives that warm, homey feeling like you're not in a hospital waiting room, just sitting there with all the gross chairs all lined up that are all the same, right? And then also, like on the functionality piece, lighting in the treatment rooms is important too. So you can actually get color corrected bulbs for your treatment rooms, which will help in your color matching teeth, which is very important, especially if you're doing a lot of cosmetic dentistry. White is not white, especially when it comes to teeth. So those things are important. If you're building from scratch, you can face your treatment rooms north because then you get the best natural lighting and you'll never have to put up window treatments. Like you won't ever have glare in there. You'll be able, it's beautiful lighting. So I was lucky with our lot. I was able to do that in our practice. Not everybody can, but you can even install like dimmer switches in the treatment rooms. Providers typically have loops with lighting and they've got the overhead light, but the patient doesn't need to be, overstimulated with all the lights. So if there's a patient that's anxious or maybe you do some sedation, helping the patient to relax by dimming the light a little bit as they're getting settled. You can always bring it back up if you need to later, but some of those little things can go a long way to helping it feel different, even though you're still in a dental environment. And then I love things like incorporating natural elements like wood and water and plants and greenery and things just to make it feel more homey, and bringing nature in really helps to calm people's nerves a little bit. Colors obviously can do a lot of fun things with colors. Color really can create emotion. And so having cohesive color scheme throughout can go a long way to make it feel like everything was well thought out and not like, oh, why is this room blue and that one's yellow and this one's, hopefully it wouldn't do that. But I've seen some crazy things. Yeah, all of that really just helps to create a beautiful atmosphere that hopefully matches, the way that your team treats their patients and the great quality dentistry that you're doing too.
Wow, there's so many things to think about. What's some great tips and tricks to just kind of create that calming environment? Thank you for sharing all of that, Jessica, with like all of your expertise. And I love how much the psychology has come into play, not only with just the conversations with the patients, making the patients feel comfortable, making the environment feel comfortable. It's all about how they feel, right? And that's why the patient experience is so important to you. And it should be important to every dentist. I look around and there's probably a dentist on every corner near my home. And, you know, it's tricky to, just looking on the outside in, you can see how everything's set up physically. And if it's a good environment, and it's not until you go in and start interacting with the team that you know that the team is an environment you want to be a part of. But I think you've given great advice today on not just physical environment, but emotional environment. All of those things come into play. So, is there anything before we wrap up, anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today that could help them in growing their business or making their team or their patients have a better experience?
Yeah, I guess I would just say that I do believe that when we do better for our patients, they're better to us too. And so we've never been like production focused or, money driven per se. I mean, it has to make money. It needs to be profitable to be a business, right? But we've not worried about that. We've really focused in on what we can do for patients and how we can make it exceptional. And the money has really followed and the growth has followed. And so I would say that, for people that are like, I don't know, a lot of that seems fluffy or whatever. I just think it's a business strategy to do really great things for patients. It will create like a magnetism where you attract those right people that really can appreciate that great experience, and that will continue to feed the business profitability side of it. So I'd like to say that. And then the other piece of it is just I know there's a lot of practices out there that they're struggling. They're like, oh, we're taking all these hits with all these networks we're involved in, and we don't have money to do these improvements, to redo the office or to paint or to make it better or to add time to the treatments that we need to do. And they just feel stuck. And I want to give them hope that you can turn that around. You deserve to get paid for your full fee. Like dental insurance, unfortunately, I feel like I'm on like a soapbox about anti-insurance, and I'm not. Like insurance can be great in a lot of ways, but unfortunately in the dental industry, it's just not kept up. It's not kept up with all the rising costs of supplies, of quality team members, and it really makes it hard to do business the way things are right now. So I like to think of a dental practice like a mini hospital. There's a lot of things going on. And for the owner of the business, it's just a lot to manage and to do it well. And so I just want to give them hope that it is possible to do great things and to continue to keep your dentistry high quality and treat patients the way you would want to be treated. There's a way. So I don't know. I just feel compelled to say that.
No, I think that's great. So if there's a listener out there who's interested in working with you and you've given so many great ideas today, Jessica, how's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So my website, you can actually email me directly from my website. I'll respond to that. It's martinmanagementllc.com. Otherwise, email is also a great way. I unfortunately live on email quite a bit. So it's Jessica at martinmanagementllc.com. And I'd love to just start a conversation and hear, what the challenges are, what the goals are. And, if I don't have the answer, I love being connected to people like you, Jacqueline, and other consultants and other people in the dental industry, because if I don't know it, I know someone that does, and I can, get you pointed to the person that would be a good fit for whatever the challenge is. So I love being a resource too.
There are a lot of dental consultants out there, and everyone kind of has their niche. And so it's important that we all play nice and can share the wealth, right? Because there's a lot of dentists out there that need help. So I really appreciate you and your generosity and your kindness to be here today. One thing Jessica and eAssist does have in common is the goal to create a better patient experience. If you are looking to streamline your insurance billing and improve cash flow, eAssist can help lighten your load by working in the background so that you can take care of patients and offer quality care and to help grow your business. Check out Jessica's resources and explore how eAssist can support your practice. Go to dentalbilling.com, and that's where eAssist can help you. Until next time, Jessica, I really appreciate you being here today. I appreciate your time. I wish you the best with your darling little family. And especially with the holidays coming up, I hope it's a good time for you guys and you guys have a great time. So thank you everyone for being here. Until next time, we'll see you again.
Thanks.
The purpose of this podcast is to interview the consultants within our eAssist Consultant Network. This podcast is for informational purposes only. For more details, please visit the homepage of this podcast platform at dentalbilling.com. Thanks for listening.